I want to bring back the anchor of this hour, my partner and friend Ali Velshi, who is outside CNN's headquarters in New York with Senator Jeff Flake.
And it needs to. So it can be done. Politicians bear a responsibility to do it. And if we can, if we can model better behavior, I think as politicians, candidates will pick up on it, and I think the voters need to reward it as well.
Yeah.
Right now there's no political market for saying I'm going to reach across the aisle.
Yeah.
If you say that in a campaign, it ends up in your opponent's ads. And it can't be that way.
Because you haven't been shy about saying what the president can do. This is a moment. Fortunately, no bombs have gone off, which is remarkable.
Right.
No one has been injured. But this is one of those moments that scares the nation a little bit.
It is.
What can the president do?
Well, frankly, his words just a few moments ago were great. He said what he should have said. We've got to tone it down and be more civil. I hope he follows it through. And we'll see in the next rally, for example,
which will happen tonight.
Tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, if there are lock her up chants that he doesn't say, hey, that's inappropriate, don't do that. Or if he is talking about a journalist that's been beat up and that's okay, I mean, that's wrong. He needs to follow up what he said with actions. And if he models that kind of behavior, it helps the rest of the politicians as well.
This has been a bit of a cause of yours.
Yeah.
What happens when you're not in office, when you're not running again? Where do you take that platform to have this particular conversation about civility and respect in politics?
I'll still be around. I'll use any platform I can. We have to change it. There are big problems that we've got to face. There are real enemies that we have outside of this country. Too big enemies to be creating those amongst us, and treating our political opponents as if they're enemies. So I'll be speaking out with whatever platform I have.
One question here. Our colleagues here at CNN are often criticized by the president, so are many of us. That's okay. But how do we get to the point where we understand that that's actually the job of the press, that we are to hold you all to account?
Well, that is. I mean, it's a politician's job to take it, frankly. I mean, that's, like I said, the enemy of the people. The president needs to know that phrase does not have a noble pedigree.
Right.
And that we have a record number of journalists being detained and being killed overseas. And you can't here be using that kind of language. You just can't.
Senator, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.